Hello, this is SKWills, reminding everyone of an ancient Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times. And we certainly live in interesting times. Perhaps too interesting for some people's taste. In 2019, had I told you that many restaurants would no longer serve the public except through their drive-through windows, that those that do serve you will often make you sit spaced apart from each other and would have a maximum number of people they would serve based not on overall accommodation, but based upon social distancing guidelines, and then subsequently explain to you that social distancing is the effort to keep people at least 6 feet apart from each other. If I told you that wearing a mask became something that you are actually considered noble for doing, and that many stores will refuse to allow you into their stores if you do not have a mask on. If I were to tell you that the United States election would be between Donald Trump, not surprising, he was the incumbent, and Joe Biden, perhaps not that surprising until you consider what I'm about to say, you might think that I was mad. Especially when you consider I would tell you that Joe Biden has absolutely no enthusiasm behind his campaign. He is the least popular candidate for United States president that we have ever had, and yet he managed to secure the largest share of the popular vote, at least officially. Unless the recounts overturn that, because I am making this whilst Donald Trump has issued legal challenge to some of those votes, and we shall wait and see. We live in an unusual world these days, a world that has changed from what it was, and a change that is likely profound and long-lasting. Perhaps permanent. Perhaps even if the world doesn't remain as it is now, I doubt it'll go fully back to the way it was. And even if we try, there will be at least little things that are different, and this has left a permanent imprint on the minds of the people who've lived through it, and possibly even history itself and future generations. So where does that leave us? We can fret, we can fear, we can walk in sorrow, anxiety, bemusement. But perhaps the most enlightened response to living in interesting times is merely to be interested in them for a moment and let them pass on and act as if they are not interesting times. To lead our lives as we would. To acknowledge the changes, but to press on and have the life that we can lead as best we can. Perhaps the turmoils of the world are not always our concern, and we don't have to always be interested in them. Perhaps, just perhaps, who the president is not so important after all. Perhaps the plague is not so important after all. Perhaps the political shakeup is not so important. I'm not saying that we should not be interested in what's going on, or that we should not take actions to make positive changes where we can. But the majority of people are not in a position to do that, and even those that are should realize that even if they fail to make those changes, there is still life, and we need not let what's happening take that from us. Instead, we should look unto God, and look unto ourselves, and realize the simple life in trusting in God, and doing what we can and what we will, is perhaps, just perhaps, the remedy to what ails us. Presidents come and go. Political situations are always shifting. The wisdom of God and the principles upon which he founded this world are everlasting. And so, our allegiance to them can be. We need not worry too much about the world. I'm not saying not to resist evil. I'm not saying not to take a stand. I'm not saying don't get involved in politics at all. But don't let it consume you. And when you are not in a position to where it would be prudent to act upon the impulses of politics and dedicate your mind to them, sit with a drink and good food. Take a nap. Read a book. Pet a kitten. But don't forget, we do not seek to defeat evil, simply to defeat evil, but to have a better world. And we don't have a better world if all we know how to do is fight against evil. There has to be a point where we lay that aside. Just as there is a time, of course, when we cannot lay aside our sword and shield, and when we must take them up and fight and resist any evil that is before us. I don't have much else to say, so I will sign off. Thank you, God bless, and goodbye.